Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Art of Life, Liberty, and Happiness podcast. And today we've got a very special guest with us. His name is Ryan Borne, and he is a photographer that works in conservation, an artist, and really a kid with huge dreams. So, Ryan, I'd love to turn the mic over to you and just let you give a quick introduction about maybe what you're passionate about right now and whatever story you want to tell us about yourself.
Okay, but first, thank you very much for having me. It's like a pleasure every time I have the opportunity to come on the show. And yeah, I don't like to define myself with only like one label or sticker. I just want people to know that I'm a kid with big dreams, and like anybody else can do whatever they want if they put their mind to it and if they commit.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm like I'm a photographer. I work for marine conservation. It's where like I find a lot of fulfillment. And I've been doing this work I started photography 4 years ago, and I've been doing conservation for about 2.5 years ago.
So when you say conservation, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What does that work look like?
Yeah. So, I spend most of my time working for an purpose-driven business called Coral Gardeners, and so the main mission is like to spread massive awareness about the problems that coral reefs are facing, this super important ecosystem of the oceans. And so, how do we do that? And also, we restore the reef. So we have like 3 main missions, which is reef restoration. The second one is awareness. So we try to tell the story of the reef, create beautiful visuals, photos, and videos to spread awareness to people all around the world through social media, and just like try to explain them, tell them what is a coral, why it's important, and try to get people from every horizon to give a shit about like the ocean.
Yeah.
And the third mission is innovation. It's like a new one, and so we work hand in hand with scientists and engineers from same thing, all horizon, like people from Silicon Valley. We're super lucky to work with like some very, very good engineers to just see what the reef restoration need and try to come up with new ideas, like new innovation, new solution to enhance the performance and the efficiency of like reef restoration that we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
So I have questions about all 3 of those things. And I'm going to save the photography, videography part for last, because there's more that I want to go into outside of conservation with that when we get there. So first, I guess some of the basics. What are some of the top concerns that people should know about, what's happening with the reefs, and maybe like something people don't know that they shouldn't be doing that they should start being aware of? Can you give like a couple of key tips and points there?
Yeah. So you have to know, like, first of all, wherever you are on Earth, every like more than 50% of the oxygen that you breathe comes from the ocean, but the ocean with healthy coral reef, because the foundation of the balance of the ocean, the ecosystem, the whole like ocean, it's based on like the coral. So you have the food chain at the base. The foundation is like the corals. Then it attracts like the little algae, then the little fish, then a bit less little fish, and then a mid-size up to the big fish, and then the sharks. Those, like, the sharks is the cap. The coral reefs are like the foundation. And if you lose any of these, especially like the extremes, if you lose like the sharks, you're way out of balance, and you're like, the oceans are not healthy anymore. And the coral reefs, sometimes they're called like the rainforest of the seas, because they cover only 1% of the surface area of the ocean, but they're home for more than a quarter of the all the marine life that exists, which is insane. So, and if we do nothing by our horizon 2050, they could be the first ecosystem to completely collapse on Earth. And
Wow.
just like it's right now, it's very urgent, and we need massive awareness and very. But the most important is yes, awareness, but also action. And so that's
So,
what we're trying to do every day with coral gatherers.
so what is maybe some simple actions that people can take just in their everyday lives that could help? Like, you know, say that they're going to the beach or they're going snorkeling or something like that. What is something to be aware of that's maybe harmful that a lot of people do and could change?
Yeah. So the main reason why corals are threatened, why do they decline, is because of global warming. So the rise due to global warming, the ocean temperature rises, and it becomes also more acidic, which make the coral skeleton weaker sometimes. Like not sometimes, like it actually like make them weaker, and they just don't have their corals are very resilient like animals, but to only like natural phenomenon. But global warming is not natural, it's something that we put on top of like the other like stressors, and that's why, and it's happening so fast that they just don't have the time to adapt. And the only species who does, they're not like a lot, and we're gonna lose so much diversity, and it's like it's just not what we want. So what can people do? The most effective ways to find ways to reduce your carbon footprint. um, One of the things that we don't necessarily think about, but it's like reducing red meat. I'm not talking. I'm never. I'm not for extreme veganism or any extreme things. I'm just about like reducing things and just being aware and conscious of like the impact. And
Are you
the most,
talking about because of large scale farming?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the number one cause of CO2 emissions. So, and that's, I think that's the easiest thing to do. Like people, not everyone have access to the ocean and can start like a reef restoration project with all the knowledge that you need to have, the team and building. Like, no, you can just keep doing all the things that you're doing, but just maybe instead of eating, I don't know the frequency, but some people they eat red meat every day. Maybe just eat it once a month, which is, and the science proved that you don't, it's not like a need, you don't really need that meat. It tastes good, yes, and you can have it instead of having every day or twice or three times a week, you can just have it once in a while. And but the whole nutrition like topic is very important, and something that I really dug into this year. And I think if I had to resume it in like a very short sentence, it would just be to eat in accordance to where you are living. So if you're like far from the ocean, don't even think about like eating fish. It's, or you can eat like river fish or,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just not made like it's not normal to have access to fish when you're like 500 miles off the coast, except if you go to the river and you catch like another one. So eat locally, I think it's the biggest. Eat locally and try to support like the little farmers and try to have like organic food. And what makes me sad sometimes is people, they think it's expensive, or it's not even. I think we made a mistake and we went a wrong way at some point. Like nutrition is not always about tasting good. Of course it's important, and you can have like you can go to the restaurant maybe once a week and have a good meal and like you really enjoy it. But if we break it down very simply, we go back to the foundation is just to survive.
Right.
That's why we eat. And now it became like the opposite. We live to eat, you know, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So I think this is the biggest thing and the simplest thing that people can do wherever they are. The other thing would be to give money and support causes. So for example, even though I don't make a lot of money, I struggle, to be honest. But even with that, I give $5 every month to like only one through a little membership, and I know that this $5, like what is $5? Like even people with very little means, they go to Starbucks sometimes, or they buy like a coffee which is like so expensive. Maybe you can say no to one coffee every month, but you can just help. And if like imagine 1 million people give $5 a month, that's insane, the amount of money that goes into good cause and like reef restoration, or like empowering local communities. So there's really like simple things that we don't even think about, and because we don't speak enough about, and that can make a huge impact. So yeah, reducing, like being careful about like the carbon footprint. I'm not saying don't travel anymore, I'm not saying like forget all the stuff. It's just about consuming mindfully, and also trying to look at where you put your money. And like even if it's $1 a month, it's, imagine like 300 million people giving $1 a month. Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And who cannot afford $1 a month? That's, I think there's very, very few people who cannot do that.
Yeah. I know that I tend to, if I have like, say there's like a big project to do or to work on, or, if you want to create a big change in the world, something like that, for me, sometimes thinking about it feels really overwhelming. And I think that's probably the case for most people. Right. But, I think the key is to take a step back from that. And what you said about, you don't just like be like, all right, well, I'm never going to travel again, so I guess I can't, because it's going to be like doing bad things to the planet. It's what you said about doing things mindfully. So just being like, okay, so making decisions, but maybe being a little bit more conscious about how I do certain things, or like my day-to-day actions, or small things that I could change. Like you said, you give up like one coffee, and that's something you can donate. And if a lot of people do that, it makes change over time. So it's like the micro adds up to the macro, and, can really lead to big changes, and I think feel less overwhelming too.
For sure. And it's really not about being perfect. That's what people have to understand, because sometimes they're like, they're looking at you trying to do stuff, but they're like nitpicking on the stuff that you're doing wrong, but they don't do anything, and they're like here blaming you, and you're like, but it's never about like being perfect. It's just about doing something, at least trying, getting better, because you don't change overnight, and you don't become perfect overnight. Just about like starting the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what most people, like, I think, are struggling with.
Yeah. So, a side note, I hear a rooster outside.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but they're like just everywhere on island.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to ask, are there just chickens like roaming, or are they your chickens?
Yeah.
Or?
And they're not mine. I wish they were not here, but it's, because it's tricky for the sleep sometimes.
I'm sure. So we talked about this before I started recording, but just so everybody can hear, where are you living right now?
So it's been 2.5 years that I'm living on Moorea, French Polynesia. So it's the sister island of Tahiti.
Okay. And what brought you there?
So crazy story. But yeah, it's to work for marine conservation with the organization Coral Gardeners, which I'm so grateful. It's been 2.5 like beautiful years, so many amazing experiences, and beautiful, like meeting beautiful people and being inspired. And it's not always easy, but it's so cool.
Yeah. What do you do with Coral Gardeners?
So I'm part of the communication team. My job is to capture the content. So go out there in the ocean with the reef restoration.
Okay, it's just part of the setting, the ambiance.
So go out there, go in the ocean, go with the reef restoration team, document what they're doing every day in order to communicate and spread the awareness on social media. So I capture photos, videos, I edit some of the videos, I edit all the photos I take. Now we are lucky we have been joined by another photographer and cameraman who is coming from Tahiti to help us because we have just so much things to cover, like the day-to-day of the reef restoration, but also working on like bigger projects with partnerships or collaboration. So yeah, so much things to do, and it's super cool.
Yeah. So I like how you talked about before you guys are using photography and videography to help spread awareness and talk about, what Coral Gardeners does. And I come from a marketing background and I make art too. So I understand the correlation, but I think a lot of people don't understand why invest in high quality photography and videos? Like, how does that help spread the word, not just for a nonprofit, for a business in general? Why don't you talk a little bit about your approach to photography and how Coral Gardeners is using that to help reach more people?
Yeah. So we have a couple of mottos. I think my favorite one and the most simple one is that we show the beauty of the ocean in order to make people want to protect it. So what does that mean? It's just that we see what I love about Coral Gardeners is that it's doing things differently. Like growing up, I heard about like Greenpeace and WWF, all these organizations, but it's never clear what they're doing, and you never really want to identify with them because their brand identity is just like old and not attractive. So what Titwan, the founder of Coral Gardeners, like was genius is that he saw the power of brand identity, brand image in order to create a movement. And so big brands have done this for like decades, and they've have like huge communities, and it's amazing, but it's like to sell products to people. So he was like, maybe there's a way to create that same, like a brand which can people relate to, a movement where people want to join and be involved in, but with the purpose of taking care of coral reef and ecosystems. And so that's so cool. Like, to resume it, like Coral Gardeners try to make reef restoration, taking care of the planet look cool and sexy. And that's, for me, that's genius, because young people, they want to identify, and they're attracted to things that look cool, and there's no shame about it. It's just the way it is, and it's cool. I like it too. And I don't want to work for any other NGO or organization, because I don't identify with their values and their identity. Yeah. The other one, like, for this is more personal, but to me, like, conservation is really about being the voice for those who cannot speak up for themselves. So what does that mean is, like, a turtle or sharks or corals, they're so important, but they cannot communicate, and not like the problem is like humans exercising like pressure with like global warming and carbon footprint. So but most of the humans, they've never seen a turtle or a coral or underwater. They most of them, like a lot of people, they've never seen the ocean in their entire life. Yet their actions that they do wherever they are impacting not only the ocean. I'm very focused on the ocean because this is my field where I work every day, but it's impacting the whole planet. And it's the big challenge with Coral Gardeners is to connect people who've never seen like the ocean, underwater world. They don't know anything about it, and then trying to make them feel empathy for like corals, which is another level of like complexity and abstractness, because a coral is very abstract. If you don't know, you can think it's just a simple rock, but it's so much more than that. And it's so, yeah, that's the big challenge, and doing all of that through a screen with like the attention span of someone, which is like 3 seconds on Instagram, which is sometimes very annoying. And that's the challenge.
But yeah, the idea is to get them to stop scrolling, right? So you capture their attention with beauty first, and then with what's in the description next. And then hopefully that inspires them to want to learn more. So they could maybe go to the website or, start learning about the topic in general and take action.
And the end goal is have them getting involved and talking about us and trying to be inspired, and also help us continue the mission, fund the whole mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the description for the podcast, I'll make sure I put a link there so people can sign on to the website and hopefully donate or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So because what's very interesting is the mission statement of Coral Gunners is to revolutionize ocean conservation and create a worldwide movement to save the reef. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
And so how do we do that? It's with the 3 missions that I explained earlier. And how do we revolutionize ocean conservation? We try to do things completely differently. So the conventional approach and how we started was like, so we were an NGO, but we saw the limits very fast with an NGO because it's only people who are volunteering and sometimes like not motivated, like lazy, and they it's cool, you can do stuff, but you cannot like have a proper impact and do something really big. And people, we can say whatever we want, at the end of the day we all need some kind of money and income. So if you don't, it's beautiful to try to help the corals and try to do good for the planet, but at what cost? Because you're just sacrificing all. If you don't get paid to do that, you sacrifice all the other areas of your life, and not a lot of people, like nobody wants to do that.
Yeah,
because it's not healthy anyway. And so yeah, we try to move on from that NGO mindset where you stay a little, nothing really happen, everyone is not really involved because they're like volunteering.
mm-hmm.
And also you're always running after governmental grant or like trying to get the funding, which is the hard part. And so Titouan said, no, let's do things completely differently. Now we're going to be a purpose-driven business. So it's a business with a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does it work? All the fundings comes from selling products. So what are the products that Coral Gunners is selling? We try to not push people to consume things. So we have a digital product, that's the main one, which is just coral adoption online. So people, they can choose between like different species of coral, mm-hmm. which one they like the best. They can, I think they can give it a name. I don't remember if we removed that. But so yeah, for like $25, they can adopt a coral, and it's like what fund the mission, and they can give that meaningful gift to someone, which is spreading awareness at the same time, and people, they get attached to their corals. And I think it's a beautiful way, and that's how we fund like the mission. And then we have all the money that comes in, but 100% of it is reinvested into the mission. So buying new gear for the reef restoration, developing the new technology, paying the people. Some people think like we keep all the money for us, but that's just not true. Like we make like the minimum we can live with, but all the money is like reinvested right into the mission and into growing the organization. And the big vision with Coral Gunners is just to create that worldwide movement would be to open like branches all around the world and having local people from the different places, so surfers, fishermen, just like local communities taking care of their own ecosystem. And so we don't come and teach them, we come and we listen to them, and we try to take into account like their knowledge, because they're like generation of fishermen, of surfer who knows the ocean, knows their local things. And so we try to build something together. What I love, and I realized this recently about Coral Gunners and how it's like mind-blowing for me, is that it's the first time I see like an organization like this, which is trying to bring everyone into the conversation and being humble enough to listen to the people with the knowledge and the tradition. And in Tahiti we have like beautiful culture, but also trying to meet with like the scientists and make those words like between spirituality, like legends, and the knowledge of the local people, trying to meet it with like the scientists. And how do we do that? How do we bring people together? One of the most powerful tools is through art, so visual arts, so the photos that we do, because it's funny, there's not, I think art is the thing that brings people together the most.
Yeah.
Like the biggest example is music. Music is amazing, and whatever language you speak, or where do you come from, if you hear a good music, you dance, or you're like, yeah, you don't need to speak the same language. Like music is universal, and so it's interesting. Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I'm a salsa dancer, and I've been able to salsa dance with people in Cambodia, Colombia, Hawaii, all over the place. And it's really just a universal language. Like you don't need to speak the same language at all. And it's just a mutual love for the music and the dance. And speaking of music, I saw you put your playlist on your Instagram for Spotify. And we have the same taste. So I noticed you have a lot of Ben Boomer, and Lane 8's my favorite artist. And so good taste.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I find a lot of joy into music. Is just crazy. It's the most powerful for me sometimes when you just like get into it really. Mm-hmm. Wow. I don't know if you listened to the last album of Rufus du Sol, but it's just, I think in 2021, and for me it's like my favorite album. Ben Boomer album was super nice too, but Rufus du Sol is just so good. It's just a pure message of like love and joy. And I
have you listened to the Live from Joshua Tree set? Yeah, it's so good. That's one of my on repeats like all the time.
So nice.
Yeah,
him and Ben Boomer are just like insane.
So how did sorry, topic change, I'm gonna bounce around a little because that's how I roll. How did you get into underwater photography in the first place?
I started with core gardeners, like really started with core gardeners. Right before like joining, I was working another job, so that's my first job where that allowed me to save all the money and buy the gear. So I was how do you say in English? I was doing warehouse man. No, is that the thing?
Warehouse like, management. Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Supply chain.
So I was driving trash trucks. I was picking up the trash in the morning, or I would go and work at the harbor and unload like the big containers, you know?
Yeah.
Just that kind of like doing deliveries, but with only heavy stuff and like with trucks. So I was doing that stuff, and it was my first job, and I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was not in a good space, headspace. I was not in a good. I was very like depressed, and oh, sorry, I lost a little bit.
That's okay. So you were talking about you worked that job and you were not in a good headspace, and then we were talking about how you got into underwater photography. So somewhere between those 2 points.
So I was like, okay, you can do, because I was like 18, 19 years old. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like now you can do this job for the rest of your life because you're like making your own money. You're doing all that stuff. Like you can stay like this forever. But because I knew like there's more to see in life, there's more to experience, and I really wanted to live other things, and I was like, or you can like give it a shot at photography and see, you have nothing to lose basically.
Yeah.
So I saved all the money I could, and I buy like the best gear I could at this time, and so that's how at some point. So I bought the gear. I started doing photography a little bit and have it on the side, like a side job. And after like 1.5 year, I decided to buy a housing, and I said I wanted to start getting into underwater photography. And so I buy the housing, but then while the housing was like being shipped, I got the opportunity to come in Montreal and work for Coriander. So I was like,
Oh, wow.
everything just lined up. And so maybe a couple days, 4 or 5 days before I fly to Montreal, I received the housing and I just tested a little bit, but I really started with core gardeners.
Do you feel like it's a really different experience photographing underwater versus on land?
Yeah. It's completely different. Like it's I think it's mandatory to be in good physical condition.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about from a physical standpoint. I was just thinking like the
the base, like the foundation. Don't even think about. I mean, you can, but first get comfortable in the water because it's a beautiful environment, but it can be scary. It can be hostile sometimes. It's never mean, but it can be merciless.
okay.
It's never in a bad way. The ocean is like a place of love, and you can see the most beautiful things that you've ever seen. But you just have to be aware of where you are and that um, you're not in control of what's happening, and you want to be very agile. You want to be in tune with your body. You want to be in good shape, especially if you start like doing things like free dive or waves like surf photography. You want to stay. Yeah, that's the first thing I think.
Wow. What are some of the most memorable moments for you underwater? Like top like 3 that you can think of, or it doesn't have to be 3, but
my favorite one ever is like free diving with tiger sharks.
wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even have words to describe. It's just I wish everyone could experience this to realize like how distorted our perception of these animals are, and yeah, that they're if you do it well, if you remove all the filter and all like the pre I don't know how to say in English, but the the ideas that society put us in our head about these animals, it's just insane. It's after not everyone will agree, but personally, it's like my favorite animal ever, and spending time with them is what brings me the most joy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't even have the word is.
Would you say it's like a feeling of awe, maybe being surrounded by them?
It's pure love. Pure love. It's wow. The present moment. I'm not and they feel like I'm not saying that they are teddy bear, huh?
Yeah.
Like the ocean, it can be dangerous place, and you have to treat it with respect, and you enter their home, their territory, and you have to always be careful and read their body language, respect their boundaries, respect their mood, their personalities, because they have very different personality from different sharks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, keep in mind that they are wild animals, so it would be like going in the middle of like a group of lions. They're not gonna eat you. You're not at their menu. But depending on how do you comport yourself, your body language, how you react, you can initiate like curiosity, and they don't have hands to grab stuff, so they use their mouth. So if you get bit, you won't get eaten, but you can be very seriously injured if you get bit one time, and can lead to death in some cases. But it's, as I wrote in my last caption, it's like the chances of dying from a shark attack is like 1 in 3,700,000, which is just like you can win. I think you can win twice the lottery before you have the chance to get killed by a shark, which is insane.
Right.
and most people, they go about their everyday life and they consume like processed food, which gives them cancer, and then they drive their car like super fast on the highway, and they're like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's all right, but it's so dangerous, you know. And I don't care. I accept to take that risk, but then I'm not hypocrite, and I'm not like saying, oh, but you're crazy, you go swim with big sharks. No, it's way more dangerous to do the everyday life and to live in society and to spend time with other human beings, because unfortunately if you hear, like, there's a lot of stories, like I know Mike Horn has this story, and also the girl who, I think her name is Alexi, the youngest woman who ever traveled to all the countries in the world.
Oh, wow.
So with Mike Horn and this girl, they have the same story, and so they said, I've traveled all across the globe, especially like Mike Horn. I've been to the most extreme places on Earth, but the only time, not the only time, but the most fear and the most dangerous thing he ever encountered was another human being, where he almost got killed, and like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And so that's, people should be careful about that. Like, dogs also are dangerous. I'm not scared of dogs, but I'm just saying, statistically, like, people should be way more scared of like dangerous dogs than sharks.
Yeah.
And it's proven. Like, we're not at their menu. If we were, we will never go into the ocean because we would get eaten right away. And there's also a very interesting experiment that was done in the Bahamas, where they have two big buckets of blood, one with human blood and one with fish blood. And so we had like a little pump who was pumping a little bit of blood every like 10 minutes in the ocean. And after like hours and hours, there were like hundreds of sharks circling around the fish blood, and zero to like one or two curious shark, and then they would go to the fish blood, never to the human blood. This is like bullshit that we put inside our head, and I'm not saying sharks are not scary. They are impressive animals, but you don't have to. We have to remove like these ideas, because even if you don't go in the water, what is dangerous and harmful for them is that people, when they hear that we kill 100 million sharks every year, they're like, oh, but that's cool, because at least I can now go in the ocean and there won't be any more sharks, and it's gonna be cool and I won't get eaten, But it's like so wrong to think that. Like, it's crazy. And so sharks kill like between 1 and 5 people every year, and we kill 200 of them every minute, which is it's insane. And as I said earlier, the two extremes of the food chains are corals, the foundation of the ocean, and sharks. And these two like really, really are very important. All the species in between are important, but these two I think are more important, because they're really like the both extremes, and they regulate all the balance of the ocean. And would be disastrous if we lose them. And they're like just so beautiful. If anyone, I don't know anyone who wouldn't, like, if you spend time with them, like I had the chance to do, I think it's impossible to feel any like hate, or you might not say that's not for me, but you will never say, oh, I want to kill them and I'm scared of them. And you just develop so much love and respect for these creatures, and it's cool.
Yeah. I feel that way with like mountain lions, right? Like I have a very healthy fear of them and respect them, but mountain lions.
Okay, so,
that's more like the predator, not here in Tennessee. Oh, they're probably in Tennessee, but especially in Colorado, right? Like that's because I hike a lot. So that is like the big fear, is encountering one of those, but it's like not something I want to go out and kill,
But I can understand it can be very scary. I think, and are you more scared of this or snakes?
So definitely mountain lions, but with snakes, it's also like, I get a little freaked out if they surprise me, right? If it's like, oh, there's one right by my foot. Cause so in Colorado, we have a lot of rattlesnakes and they're venomous, of course. So that's an issue, but most of the snakes there are not a concern.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I like snakes, but I feel like it's so dangerous. Like, because you sometimes you without, like a mountain lion or a big shark, you see him, he's there, like you.
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay,
it's so hard to see the snakes.
but if you step on a snake without, and you're like, I don't mean to step on it, but if you step on it and it bites you, you can die. Like,
yeah,
and you didn't even know it was here. It's just so stealth, and so it's death, like potential death that can be like puff like this, And to me, this is a bit more scary.
Do you have snakes? Do you have like venomous snakes or anything on Moria?
No, we're lucky. Like on land, there's close to zero animals that live on land. There's like couple cows, couple horses, and that's it. There's no snake, no insect, nothing.
Wow.
But if you go underwater, then there's like the life is just abundant and everywhere. It's beautiful. But we're lucky on that side. No, not very. The most dangerous things are the stonefish. If you step on a stonefish, it can be dangerous.
Wow. They have those off Australia, don't they? Stonefish.
I think Australia, they have all the
things that kill you. Yeah. That's funny. So you were talking before with the conservation side of things. The third leg of that was innovation. And, there are some tech companies you were working with, and you don't have to share the names of any of those if that's like protected or something. But I'd love to know, like, what is some of the innovation that you see happening that's really exciting, or that you hope to see happening?
For sure. So it's not my main field of focus. So I can give you basic information. I don't know a lot about
That's okay.
But a beautiful story. Again, like coming back to the kids with big dreams. A big dream of Titouan, the founder of Core Gardeners, was that someday we can work with the top engineers to develop new technologies to help the ocean. And so that's exactly what happened. I don't know how it happened, and that's not our business, how things come into the universe. But what matters, the fact that cannot be discussed, is that it happened. And so he had this dream, and he managed to get on the call. Long story short, like some people get married in Moria. Some people from the Silicon Valley who work at Google, they get married in Moria, and they come to the Core Gardeners when it was like the very beginning. And so they meet Titouan and they spend the day with them. And maybe 2 years later, the guy who works at Google, so Titouan reached out to this guy, and he says, hey, I would love to develop new technologies for marine conservation, and do you know any engineers I can work with? And so the guy is like, I can try to have you a call with Dr. Drew Gray. So he's I'm going to get into his bio a little bit later. So I can get you on a call with Dr. Drew Gray, and you see what you guys can do together. And so Titouan jumped on the call with this guy. And that's so like crazy, because this guy was working for Tesla, Uber, all like these big companies. And he's the first person Elon Musk hired to develop the self-driving car and the AI for the Tesla autopilot. And so after he worked for Uber, and so he's like the top leading engineer in that field.
Oh wow!
And he just, on the very day where they do the call, he had just quit his job at Uber or Tesla. I don't know which company, but one of the two companies. And he's like, I just quit my job today. I don't know what to do, but my big passion is the ocean. And they
wow.
And so we've been working for about 2 years on the first project of the CG Labs. So it's the innovation side of Core Gardeners. And the first project is called ReefOS. So it's a system of cameras and sensor who are sitting on the coral nurseries, and with like all the sensors, they gather data, and it helps us better monitor and understand like the health of the corals, and how can we take care of them, and what factors, just better understand like how they work, like what factor, maybe if the acidification of the ocean like rise, then they become a certain way. I don't know, I'm not like scientist, but just trying to see what parameters affect their health, but also with the camera. And we train an AI to recognize the fish, so we can know in real time on the nursery, measure the impact. So let's say for now it's still an experiment, and it's the very beginning, but in the future the vision would be we have a dead reef, and we can put that camera, start measuring the fish population, the parameter of the water, all that stuff, and then we restore that area. So we bring new life to the reef with like planting corals and have them grow. And then with the AI, we can like measure accurately the impact, how much more fish are coming to the area, but what species, and also how the species interact with each other with deep learning and all that very complicated stuff, which I cannot explain.
Yeah.
But it's interesting project, and I'm so excited to see this happening here. It's
That's really cool.
so because it's always that contrast between like the little kids, local kids, surfer fishermen from a little island in the middle of Pacific, but now they manage somehow, because they believe in the beauty of their dreams, they manage somehow into working with like the top engineer of the Silicon Valley, which is like the opposite world, and they bring together and they create something beautiful for the ocean. And that's the power of Core Gardeners. It's empowering everyone.
Is there is there somewhere people can go to like see what's going on with that experiment or see any of the data?
So you cannot see the AI working now. It's still in learning. It's still like a baby. We're still training it. But you can go to YouTube or Core Gardeners website, and people can watch the live.
Oh, on the Coral Gardeners website.
Yeah, there is a live stream 24/7 at a little test spot. So where we put the camera and we put like different, like we can see a part where the reef is normal, or a part where we like planted some corals. You can see another part because the camera is like turning all the time. And there's another part where you can see a nursery. How do we restore the corals? And I think every 2 or 3 minutes, the camera like swipe and change the view, so you can see all the different like methods and how do we work underwater. And people can access that through either YouTube live stream or the Core Gardeners website. And on the website, there's like a little playlist that we created with my buddy Leo. He's the creative director at Core Gardeners. And we had so much fun like building that little playlist. And so you can just put the big on your TV, maybe in your living room, you can put like the live stream and see all the fish in the lagoon, which is like beautiful. It's like an aquarium, but it's live. Huh? It's real. It's not fake. Some people, they say always like it's fake, but no, it's in the lagoon of Morea, and it's all natural and wild wildlife. And sometimes you can see shark, fish all everywhere, and you can put like the playlist with the music, and it's just like a good cool background if you're like in your living room or just hanging out with friends. It's fun.
That's awesome. The playlist, the one that you shared, or a different one?
That's my personal one, but we recreated one especially for ReefOS, and it's funny. Leo called them "Let's Save the Rhythm."
Okay. That's awesome. I had another question about the AI thing, but I forgot what it was. So that's okay. What about your personal photography? Do you sell prints or anything like that? Or not really?
So, yeah, a little bit. I do work with a company who sells some prints. I don't know if I will continue. It's something I have in my mind. I don't really know, but it's a good point. Like trying to find ways to support my work as an artist is tricky. So sometimes you have to accept things. Yeah, it's tricky, especially if you work like in. If I was doing only freelance, you can make a good living. If you're only working for commercial stuff, you can like easily make a good living. But as I'm like investing all of my time and energy and gear, which costs so much money, but I invest all my gear for marine conservation, which for now doesn't pay very well. I try to find ways to sustain myself to help. So yeah, I do sell a couple prints. It's called the website is called driftward.com. People can see.
What's it
And
called?
also driftward.com.
DRIFTWAR?
ARD. Yeah.
ARD. Okay. Cool. I'll put that in the links too. Yeah, your photography is beautiful. I love your colors and the lighting and like the very dramatic tones and yeah.
It's colors are so nice too. It's like I always see the job as like 50-50. And what I love about like my job and like my passion is that it might be selfish, but it's really for me in the beginning just to um, allow myself to live my dreams and also to learn and see what the world has to offer. That's like the first thing. So I always have like I love this process of you go out there into some places you've never been or just doing things you've never did, and you try to make sense of like that experience, try to live it, capture some of it, and then you come back into like your room or like at your desk, you put your music on, and then you enter like a whole nother world where you try to make sense of everything that happened and create art, and you feel all these beautiful emotions like when you have the music and you're like editing the photos and you're like finding the beauty in the things that you shot, and maybe on the moment you didn't see something, but then when you have the time to settle down and be in front of the computer, you find like all these little things that you haven't seen in the moment, and it's just like so beautiful. I love it. It's like 50-50, and then you edit, and that's where you add even more of your very personal vision. How do you see the things? Do I see this photo like in black and white, or do I see the blue like this, or do I see the blue a bit more like violet or like green, or what about the orange? You know, it's really where you put your very personal touch, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep like forgetting my questions that I was going to ask. That's okay.
No worries.
Yeah. So what are some of your big dreams that you haven't seen happen yet? Because we introduced you as kid with really big dreams. So I want to hear about some of them.
Yeah. I'm so lucky that very young. So right now I'm 22. And even before 22, I'm so lucky that to have realized a lot of like my biggest dreams. So some of them were like either to go, one of them was to shoot the waves at Teahupo and see it in real life at least once, or swim with big sharks, and I've done that. And it's just so cool. Or like find a job that I love, and that's what I have here. And it's very cool to get them young to realize that it's not everything and it's not a destination. Like people, they always chase like their thing, and they're like, oh my god, if I achieve this, it's gonna be so cool. And yes, but depending on which mindset you go into it, maybe not. Like you might realize it, and then you'll be like not fulfilled, or you'll feel actually the opposite, and you'll feel like depressed and not so super grateful to have like realized some of the biggest very early, to realize and try to have a healthier approach to dreams and goals and all that stuff. But right now, I really want to know also big question I've been asking myself this year is what is enough? Because I really don't. I want to have dreams and goals and things, but I really don't want to be the person who live through their dreams and only be like chasing the next thing,
Yeah.
next thing, because you never in the present moment, and this moment is already perfect. Like I want to be able to enjoy what I have now, be here, be fully present, have joy from this experience right here, right now, and of course have goals and projects to work towards. But if they happen, that's cool. But if not, just having that place here and now where I'm like um, in peace, you know. But if I would say like my biggest dream for sure, like coming up, and something I'm working on like since a lot of years, but I'm getting closer, is to share my life with someone like a girlfriend, a partner. That's the thing I look forward the most,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you think you'll stay on Moria for a long time, or do you want to go back home, or what's your thoughts?
I have no
Eventually.
idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm trying to see what the opportunities. For now, with the current context and situation, is very tricky. And I'm good here. I have like friends that are like my family. I have a very good access to the ocean and nature, but it's cool also. I would love to see something else and experience it. So maybe keep the base in Moria and the work here with Oriental, which I love, but also for my personal like health and mind, like spirit, to travel and see other stuff and come back to the island all the
Yeah.
time. But I want to see other stuff. It's just with the actual context is very hard for me because I don't really want to get a vaccine, and it's hard because you get all your liberties taken away from you, and it can be tough sometimes. But
Yeah, totally.
I'm still confident, and I hope it cannot last like this for a long time, and you cannot force someone to put things in their bodies. It's like their property, and you just I'm not for or against any vaccine. I'm the first one who did all my vaccine when I was a kid for like other diseases, but now I evolved a lot in my mind, and I really do believe that if you take care of your health, and there's like natural way to do it, and at the end of the day, your body is your own property, and no one can decide what you put inside of it. You're in control. You don't give your power away to anyone. And if you want to get that vaccine, it's super cool, like go for it. But people should have the choice to choose what they put in their body. That's for me, that's non-negotiable. And we should not judge anyone. Like I don't care if people get the vaccine or not. I'm not trying to even get on the side. I just know that
Right.
for me, this is my property, this is my body. I take care of my own health, and I don't want to have this in my body. And the only thing I want is people to respect that, and to don't remove all the liberties and do discrimination on people who just have different opinions. You know, I'm
Yeah.
just open to everything. But that's the thing.
What is your diet like? Like what kinds of stuff do you usually eat? And
Um, that's such a good topic. I got really into it this year, and I used to eat like a bit of everything. Even though like the last 2 years, I really reduced like red meat a lot, close to zero, one twice a year maybe. Once again, it's because here I have the chance to be I have like local fish, so I try to eat locally. But even if there's like local fish easily accessible, I know like that the resources in the ocean are like scarce, and they're harder and harder to find, and overfishing is a big problem. So I try to not eat fish more than once or twice a week,
Okay.
only local fish. And the rest of the time, it's only vegetables, lentils. And it's crazy. Like, it's just that in people, they think, oh, if you don't eat meat, you're just going to eat like a leaf of salad, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
no, I actually, like, when you really start to get into it, I actually found out, and now I have like a mix with like 3 different lentils. And for 100 grams, like, I don't know the ounces, or like for that same like volume or mass, there's even more protein than any meat, you know. And so you can do workout and like and build muscle, or like be in very good shape by eating only plants. And so I try to have like this base of like 3 different lentils as like the base for like the protein, and then on top a variety of like vegetables, so local vegetables and local fruits, and a lots of fiber, which is like super important. So lots of seeds, oats, oatmeal. I don't know if what's the correct name in English, but yeah,
Yeah.
oats, variety of seeds, fruits, vegetables, and that's pretty much it.
What are your what kinds of local fish are on the menu there usually?
The main one is tuna.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, it's super cool when you have like this, like, but it's so good too. Huh? I love it, but I try to not eat too much of it. But
Yeah.
beautiful to have access to this, and this being like the local fish that we can have, it's so nice. So,
Yeah.
but if I was like in mainland, or like in, maybe I would never eat fish again. I don't know.
Mm.
But or maybe once a year can be okay, you know. Or if there's like a local fisherman who fish in the river, like the salmon, or I don't know, something very sustainable. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I respect like the veganism and all stuff, but I don't feel like it's very healthy when you go to the extreme where people, they don't even eat like eggs, which depending on how they are created, they don't hurt like the animal. Like a chicken is normal for him to produce eggs. So if you have a local farm and you can have like local eggs, I don't see what's wrong in doing that. Same thing with honey. Like, of course, like maybe mass industrialized like honey is bad, but if you find like a local guy who does like his own like beehives and stuff, then no, there's no way of not using what nature gives you, because nature has already everything that we need. uh, yeah.
Yeah. What kinds of fruits and vegetables do you have on the island?
Our lucky, we have like a lot, almost
Yeah.
everything. Maybe we don't have like apples, pears, peaches, that kind of stuff, but we do have like bananas, avocado, papayas, pineapples, mangoes. All my
Fresh
favorite ones.
papaya and mango is so good. But then like here in the US, it's like there's like a certain window where we get some good mangoes, but like the papayas are never good here, like compared to where it's grown fresh somewhere. So it's always so disappointing. So I love tropical fruits and we just don't really get good ones.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's also about like eating with the seasons, and I think it's so wrong that now we've been how do you say in English? Now we've been used to have access to all the things all the time, and so we become jaded, and that's not how it works. Like,
right.
And nature is so well made. Like, you have certain fruit at certain seasons, and then you start to appreciate even more. If you have access to everything all the time, how can you appreciate like what you have? No, you appreciate the avocado, you appreciate the mango because it's there only like 3 months in the year, or twice a year, you know. And it's that whole like way of thinking that can be tricky in the society. But if you take the time to step back and question yourself and educate yourself, like, you can really go back to the base. And what's very important, is find a lot of fulfillment and joy and happiness into like the simple things, because that's all that matters. Like love is the only thing that matters in the at the end of the day. Yeah, not anything else to add.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a great practice in gratitude too. Just realizing like, oh, this, I only get it for a few months. So it's a really great time to appreciate it. I think it's easy, at least for me, it's easy to forget that sometimes and find that gratitude.
Even for me, living here in paradise is tricky when it becomes your whole reality. And the only thing that you can sometimes forget how lucky we are to be there, or how like beautiful life is, or how crazy it is to have like these abundance of nature and seeing all these beautiful things. But wherever you are, there's beauty everywhere. It's not only because you live in Moria or you live I don't know, in Hawaii, that it's beautiful. There's beauty everywhere. You just have to be open and look for it, and don't listen to other people or like what society tells you what is beautiful. Try to think for yourself and ask yourself what do you find beautiful, what fulfills you, and follow your own stuff, like your own intuition, the things that makes you feel alive, instead of like following the things that we tell you. I think that's the worst thing is, and the most sad things for me, is seeing like people, they follow what they never think for themselves, or like they feel like they're powerless, and they give their power away to all the different like things that happens, but except but us, but them, And so how do you take back your power? You just take responsibility for everything that happened in your life, because that's the truth. That's the truth. I'm not saying that you control whether you control other people. No. But what do you control is how do you react to everything that happens. And this is your responsibility, and this is where you take back your power. And I think that if I wish everyone would really understand the power of it, because it brings you so much peace, so much joy, and it's just like beautiful, because now you have all the power. Like nobody can take something away from you. It's just, do you give it to them, or do you keep your power, and you know that you have the responsibility for everything that's happening to you, maybe not to other people, or it's a complicated concept to understand sometimes, but I really do believe in it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little bit the other way too, where it's like you don't have the things you don't have control over, and being okay with that. Like you don't have control over if somebody else is happy or not, and it's not your responsibility to make them feel that way. And that can be like a big lesson to learn too. It's like you control your own reaction, but you can't control theirs. And sometimes you just need to let people have the reaction they're going to have and work through it on their own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like unconditional love comes into play. And this concept that took me so long to really click, and I still don't understand, or it's hard for me to wrap my mind around like the whole concept. But then you know that however they're gonna react, you just know that you love them, and it doesn't mean that you have to be their friends, but you don't want to carry with you anger, hate, or whatever, even whatever they're doing to you, because depending on how you react, and if you, let's say, you carry anger or hate towards someone, it's only you, the hate and the anger, it's only living inside of you. Some people, if they hurt you, like it can happen sometimes, they don't even care. They're not even bothering about like what they did to you. They don't care. Some people can be cruel, and for them, they don't carry any of that, and so you're the only one carrying that anger, that hate, that sadness, that stuff. And so no, you have the power about it, and you can take your responsibility and try to see a different approach on what happened, and just start loving everything. just try to nurture love and focus your attention on things that you find beautiful, things that brings you joy, and instead of like recessing the past and living in the past all the time.
Yeah. That's a sure recipe for feeling pretty miserable.
Yeah. And yeah.
So I have a question that I like to ask all of my podcast guests, and that is, what does happiness mean to you?
That's a good question. I think it's just like that state, like where you're, when you're so in tune with who you are, really, you're like allowing yourself to be who you really are, despite of what everybody else can say or do to you. You just have that confidence and you know what feels right for you and you follow that thing. Yeah, I think that's happiness. Like,
Yeah,
really, it's being the most authentic version of yourself. Like, authenticity is just, it's very interesting. I had a conversation with someone Wednesday, I think, and she gave me a whole nother definition of authenticity, which unfortunately I don't remember the exact wording. But I told her, like, yeah, for me, authenticity is like chasing your dreams and what makes you unique and all that stuff. And she said, yes, that's like one of the definition. But to her, it was like so stressful to think about, like, trying to stand out, because I told her, like, the most authentic version of yourself, and I really do believe this, like, for anyone, but it's advice for especially like young artists and people who are interested in like art, because the only thing that you have to offer, what was going to make you stand out, is like who are you, like who you really are, because everybody else already do their stuff, and you don't want to do the same thing as other people. So how do you stand out, how do you find your own style, is by going inward and like really doing the work and trying to find out like who do you really are. It's easier to find who you are not in the beginning, that process of elimination. And so that's one definition. But then she said, yeah, but this is so stressful for me, like when I hear about like how I'm gonna stand out and be different, and like another definition of authenticity is simply expressing your thoughts and feeling openly, like without any filter. So being the concept of vulnerability, which I love, and I really think it's like the way to go. I really do hope more people open themselves for them and for other people, because it's like for the well-being of everyone. And so yeah, just being open, honest, and vulnerable, because you have nothing to hide. And yeah, there's nothing like, what can you be ashamed of? Like everyone has, if you really think about it, everyone has the same fear. They're just humans, like we're all on the same boat, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, or to be like, just be who you are.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah. And I think the more that you open up about stuff too, like, hey, I don't know what my artistic style is right now, I'm exploring and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Or like, hey, like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, big social issue right now. I'm kind of thinking my way through it, and just being completely honest about that stuff, I think helps other people feel like they can be honest with themselves too.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. This was really eye-opening in a lot of ways, and I don't know, just very feel good.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to have this kind of conversation, and it's also like very helpful for me, and I feel like maybe for you, for other people. It's really about showing, especially as young men, but as young people in general, we're always taught like you have to be strong, you have to be like aggressive, you have to be not show any emotion, not show any stuff. And I think it's the complete opposite. And it's the biggest strength is like being completely open. And when someone like has given you like already everything, what do you want to take from them? You cannot take everything from them. They already gave you everything and they don't care. Like whatever you do, you can like, oh, you can destroy, like I open myself to you, you can destroy myself, you can harm me, but then like I'm fine with that. And if you do the right work and you know that you have the power of how do you react to it, there's nothing to fear, after, or like to really, really fear. It's always like a bit of stress, but you realize that there's nothing. Yeah, that's the biggest strength, like being kind, open, and honest.
Being unfuckwithable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Hey, have a wonderful day. And it was a pleasure chatting, and I hope you keep in touch.
Thank you very much. Take care.